Okay, everybody, welcome again to Mark 420, the 3D Modeling and Animation 1 course here at Kenyatta College. Um, I'm your instructor, Paul Noss. We met earlier in class. What I'm going to do for each of these classes is there'll be a review video that's available every week with the materials for the class, and it'll catch all the highlights of the things that we talked about in class. Now, this is just going to hit the main subject topics, so you're going to want to be sure to be taking notes in class to catch, any subtleties or any additional information that might be provided. But for sure, this will be available every week for you. But don't expect it to be exactly like the class, because it won't be. It'll be just a summary of the things that we talked about, some demonstration, and it'll be available to you for as long as you're in the class. You're welcome to use these as much as you like. The only thing that I request is please do not repost them anywhere. Don't put them up on a YouTube page. Don't link to them on social media, because that creates a disincentive for anybody to take the class, because if the course material's out there and free for the taking, then nobody signs up for the class, and our enrollment goes down, and I lose my job, and then I have to move in with you, and it's not a good thing. So I snore, it's all bad. So please don't link it anywhere else, but otherwise feel free to use it to help remind you what we talked about in class. First thing is the syllabus. Again, here's we talked over the syllabus in class. There's a lot of information on here. Please be sure to reread it. I know we walked through it, but be sure to reread it. It's available in Canvas. There's a link to it. You can either download it or you can just read it online. It's up to you. But please be familiar with it. Okay, the other thing I want you to be familiar with, I'm going to go ahead and close this real quick. The other thing you need to be familiar with is we looked at some, Maya's already up and running, and we looked at some tutorial videos at the beginning of class, and I want to show you where to find those again. Once Maya's up and going, you've got help, and then right here, 1 minute startup movies is where you can find that link, and it will take you to, you have to have a web connection, and it takes you to the Autodesk Maya help page, and here are all the links for those movies. We didn't do the materials, lighting, and rendering. That'll come much later, and you could look at it now if you wanted to, but we're going to go over it again in a couple of months, so you can hang out, hold off on that. All right, so what I wanted to go over with you is the first assignment, and the first assignment is just a fun one. The idea is just to kind of get familiar a little bit with Maya, with the tools, how to animate a little bit. Maya's already up and running. This is how Maya starts out. It starts out with a single view in the perspective view. We want to go to the front view. So what I'm going to do, I've got my cursor in the main window, and I'm just going to tap the space bar, and that gives me my 4 views. This is the labels aren't showing up, but this is top, front, and side. And you can tell usually by looking at these little widgets down here in the corner. In an orthographic view like these, you'll only see 2 axes. You'll see the indication of the third, but XY axis indicates the front view because the positive Z is the forward-facing view. So we're going to work in our front view. So I'm going to put my cursor here and tap that again. And then I want to create a polygon primitive sphere. And however it comes up is fine. We're not going to do anything with this except bounce it up and down. We made a bouncing ball in class. If you wanted to redo it, or if you wanted to review how we did it, because I know we went through it kind of quick, feel free to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten up my view. I'm holding down my Alt key and middle mouse clicking, dragging down to bring this dark line down towards the bottom of the view. That's going to serve as our ground plane that the ball is going to bounce against. And with the ball selected, with the green lines on the ball, I'm going to hit W, which is our move tool. You can also click on it here. This is move, rotate, and scale. You can click on it here, or if nothing's selected or a different tool selected, you can hit W, and that'll bring up the move tools. Now, I'm going to be moving this up and down over the space of 24 frames. So I'm going to change my frame range down here, down to 24 frames. I only want 24. There's 200 in the scene right now. You can see that right there. But I only need 24. So I want to move this up to the top. We want to have a ball that starts at the top, hits the ground here, and then bounces back up. Remember, we're creating a cycle. A cycle is any action that repeats, so we can see it over and over and over again. We can use it repeatedly. Walks, runs, things like that in video games are also cycles. They're also animated as cycles, so that when you as the player move the player character around, the feet move consistently. So this is a good skill to learn, how to make the beginning and the ending of your action match up so that it can work in a cycle. So I'm going to take my playback head here, make sure it's on frame 1. This is a little gray box, and it's going to be on frame 1. And I'm going to take my ball, I'm going to move it up here to the top of the screen. Actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I want it to be just a little bit bigger, because it makes it a little easier to see what's going on. And I'm going to put the ball right about there. That's pretty good. And then to set a key, remember, you have to tell Maya, at this point in time, I want this thing to be doing this. So the way we do that is by setting keys. And to set a key, I'm just pressing the S key on the keyboard. And you can see we got a little red mark right there on frame 1. That lets us know that there's a key there. So now the position of the ball, excuse me, the position of the ball is now set at this point. The other thing that we want to do is we want to have the ball return to this position. So since it's already there, we might as well set another key. So I'm just going to grab my playback head, drag it down here to frame 24, and hit S again. So now I've got my 2 keys at the very top of the ball's bounce. I want to come halfway through the bounce, either frame 12 or frame 13. It's up to you. I prefer frame 13. I'm going to, again, I'm grabbing the manipulator, the single axis manipulator here, to move the ball down, because this will move it in a straight line. We don't want our ball to wiggle on its way down. We want it to just drop straight down. And if I grab the ball in the center here, I can move it all over the place, and that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to hit Z to undo that. And then I'm just moving the ball down so that the bottom of the ball is touching this black line down here. And that's the ball in its down position when it hits the ground. Again, I'm going to hit S to key that ball. So now if we hit rewind here, we've got our ball in its up position, and then going through the keys, frame 13 it's down, frame 24 it's up. And so we've got our main key positions done, and our ball is ready to bounce. And if we hit play, we can see that the ball's moving. But it's not moving the way that a ball moves. You remember when we were out in the hallway, you saw that the ball accelerates from its up position, picks up speed, it's at its maximum speed when it hits the ground, and then it rebounds quickly and then slows as it's fighting gravity and it's getting back to the top of its bounce again. So we need to do a little bit of manipulating of the tangents of this ball so that we can get the look that we're after. So I'm going to go back over here, go back to frame 1. I just clicked on the rewind key to do that. And then I'm going to go to Windows, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. And this is the graph editor that we played in during class. And this is what shows us the velocity and the change of value of the ball. Remember, this is value change over time. So the value change is the vertical axis, and the time axis is the horizontal. We move the ball on the translate Y, or the TY axis, so all we need to really look at is that. We want the ball to slow at the top, we want it to speed up as it comes down here, and then we want it to slow down as it reaches the top of the bounce again. Remember that the more vertical this line is, the more vertical this is, the faster the change is happening. The more horizontal it is, like it is down here and up at the top, the slower the change is. So what's happening here is the ball is starting out slow, it picks up speed, but then because of the tangent type that we have selected, it slows down as it gets to the ground. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen a ball that slowed down as it got closer to hitting the ground. So we need to fix this so that we've got that quick, that speed up, hit the ground, quick response, back up towards the top of the bounce again. First thing we want to do is make sure that these are flat, these tangent handles are flat. I'm just click, hold, and dragging over these two keys. These little marks are your key frames. And those handles look good, so we'll leave those alone. Then we're going to come down here to the bottom one. I'm going to select this guy. And these handles need to come up so that we can get that fast, that vertical, more vertical line that goes quickly. But you see when we change one handle, the other handle responds. And that's going to prevent us from getting a sharp bounce on both sides. So what we want to do, and I'm just hitting the Z key to undo this. What we want to do is we want to break the tangents. That's this tool right here. It looks like a little V. I'm going to click on this with this key selected. I can drag on the key. And I'm going to click on the V to break the tangents. And then the handles go dashed. You can see that. And that means that they're now independent of each other and we can move them separately. So I'm going to drag select over this, highlight that handle, and then click and drag up. And you see that I can change this now to get a sharper angle as it comes in, and then drag select over this one. Click on this and drag it up and get a sharper angle coming out. If I drag upward like this, I can even flatten out the top of this bounce so that the ball will slow down even more. So, you know, remember the steeper this is, the faster it's happening. So if I take this and drag it up like this, and this depends on how your tangents are set up here. Yours might be a little different. If when you drag up it doesn't move like that, don't worry about it. It's fine. You'll get a nice bounce just by breaking the tangents and pulling those handles up. So that's what we want our curve to look like. Looks kind of like the birds that you would draw, you know, when you wanted to draw a bird in the distance on the drawing that you did when you were a kid. You do little V shapes. That's what we're after here. So the ball starts out slow, picks up speed. Here's where it hits the ground, where it's traveling its fastest. And then it rebounds quickly. And as it gets back up towards the top of its bounce, it slows down again as this line goes more horizontal. So we're done. And if we rewind this, we're on frame one, so we don't have to rewind it. I'm going to click off of this so that all this highlighting is gone because it's easier to see what's going on. Oh, my shading is wireframe unshaded, so I'm just going to change this. Where are we? Why are we wireframe unshaded? It's not wireframe unshaded. All right. We will just turn that off and we'll pretend it's not there. So here we go. Here's our bounce. There it goes. So now we've got a quick or a slow at the top. It slowly moves into the drop. It picks up speed as it gets closer, as it gets further along. Hits the ground, rebounds very quickly, and then slows down at the top of the bounce again. And you can see that the playback is happening over and over and over again. When it gets to frame 24, it immediately circles back to frame 1 and plays it again. And that's exactly what we want. We get a nice seamless piece of animation. So I'm going to stop this now. And once you've got this set up and it's working like this, you want to do a play blast. You're turning in a play blast of your bouncing ball. The way to do, there's a couple ways to do a play blast. You can go up here to Windows and select Play Blast if you like. The quickest way I find is just to come down here to the timeline, right click, select Play Blast, and I'm going to go to the option box because I need to save this. And here's my Play Blast window. And we want to make sure that Save to File is selected, and we're going to go Movie File and Browse, and we'll put this somewhere where we can find it easily. I'll put it on the desktop. Call it Ball Bounce, click Save, and then I'm going to hit Play Blast, and it'll go through and it'll play those frames for us. And then we have our bouncing ball, and we can set this up to loop. We're going to do View and Loop. This is in QuickTime 7. And you can play this in QuickTime 10 as well. I'm using QuickTime 10 to record this, so I can't play it in there. But we're set up to loop, and I hit play, and we get this nice bouncing ball. And this is what you're going to turn in. You're going to turn in the Play Blast of your ball bounce. Okay? All right, so that's this week's assignment. Now, just as a sneak peek, I want to show you this. Let's make sure we're looping. We sure are. Next week, you're going to take the ball bounce that you did and build on it so that you end up with something like this, where the ball is bouncing across the screen. Don't worry about it now. Be sure to focus on getting your vertical bounce, the straight up and down bounce, working well, because what you're going to do is take that file and build on it to create this. And actually getting from the vertical up and down bounce to this bounce is really pretty simple. If you want to sort of play around with it a little bit, I'll give you a hint. We made the ball bounce up and down by using the TY axis, the translate Y axis. To get it to move side to side, we're going to use one of the other axes, and we're only going to use 2 keys to do it. So if you want to play with it a little bit after you do the vertical assignment and have that turned in, by all means, please feel free to do that. But we'll go over this getting the ball across screen next week in class, and I'll show you the trick. It's actually pretty simple. It introduces a concept called layering animation, layering the animation that you're doing. You do one thing first, then you add another thing, you add another thing. And it's the way all professional animators animate. We never try and tackle everything at once. We're always doing the big movements first and then adding the detail. So that's what this assignment will do. It's just this is a real quickie for next week. But just wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek of what was going to happen. And if you have any questions, please feel free again to email me, drop by my office, or give me a phone call. Usually a phone call is the least effective way to get me because I'm hardly ever in my office. When you call, I'm here a lot, but the phone never seems to ring when I'm in. But email or dropping by is a real good way to do it. And have fun and enjoy, and I will see you next week.